Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Vakratunda Mahakaya Surya Koti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Team Param Vedanta extends a warm welcome to this super special session. It's super special because of the topic, and we get to hear straight from the horse's mouth. We all recognize the problem called ego, however subtle it is. It's not about solving this problem, but totally dissolving this ego through the pramana of Vedanta. Does this not sound very exciting? In today's session, our revered teacher, Dr. Timmappa Hegde sir, would be giving us a roadmap towards achieving this end. Let's be all ears to absorb and assimilate with total awareness. Over to you, sir.
Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Pariyantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om. The word Vedanta refers to the last portion of the Vedas or also the Upanishads. Vedanta has many schools. The three principal schools of Vedanta are Advaita Vedanta, popularized by Adi Shankaracharya, Dvaita school of Madhvacharya, and the Vishishtadvaita of Ramanujacharya. Adi Shankara is the champion of Advaita Vedanta, but we seem to forget another great master, Gauda Padacharya, who preceded Adi Shankaracharya. He was the guru of Adi Shankara's guru, Govinda Bhagavat Padacharya, famous for those brilliant Mandukya Karikas. Adi Shankara has given the essence of Advaita Vedanta in one shloka. Shlokardena pravakshami. I will teach you in half a shloka. Yad uktam grantha koti bihi. What is given in crores of volumes and texts. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha. Now, this is the great challenge of Advaita Vedanta. What is the great challenge of Advaita Vedanta? Brahman is the only reality. It is easy for us to relate to a God with form, but Brahman, that which has no form, which is something that I cannot experience, and to say that is the only reality. And Advaita Vedanta is absolutely non-compromising on the first truth that the only reality or all that exists is Brahman and Brahman alone. Sarvam Kaluvidam Brahma. The realized masters speak about that other than Brahman, nothing really exists. The second fundamental truth of Advaita Vedanta, which is very difficult for all of us, including students of Vedanta who have been studying Vedanta for a long time, is this world is not as real as it appears to be. And the teachers or the awakened masters are absolutely non-compromising to say that this world is a lower order of reality. It is something that is what we experience, just like, not a very good example, but for want of any other example, it is compared to the dream, where the dream experiences can bring us pleasure or sorrow. So they say the world is of more of an appearance, and the real nature of all of us is very similar to the nature of Brahman. My essential nature is identical to that of Brahman. Now, the third factor is also very difficult to assimilate. And unless these three factors are assimilated, it is difficult to progress on the path of Advaita Vedanta. And that is why this becomes one of the difficult schools. But there is a tremendous amount of promise. Let us see how we ordinarily approach or how psychological approaches to problems happen. There was a man who had a problem. This is a story. Let us take it for the story worth itself. He had one problem, and the problem was that every time he entered his chief executive's office, he became so nervous that he could not control himself. He would pass urine in his clothes. Now, this became a problem. So his friend told him, you must go and see a urologist. But it so happened instead of seeing a urologist, he went to a psychologist. So the psychologist treated him for some time, and after some time, the friend asked him, "How are you?" He said, "I'm fine." "Has the problem been solved?" He says, "In a way, yes, in a way, no." He says, "Can you explain what you mean in a way, yes, in a way, no?" He says, when I go to my chief executive's room, the same problem happens, but now I'm not bothered about it. Now, is Vedanta something like that? Is it a mind game? Am I trying to imagine I am Brahman? Am I trying to imagine that this world is not so real? So how is Vedantic approach to problem solving different from psychological approach? In a way, it is not different, because both in psychology and in Vedanta, we work on our mind. And in one of the Upanishads, Nayam Atma Balavihena Labhyaha. The Atma or Brahma Vidya is not available for someone with a weak mind. You have to have a strong mind. So one of the qualifications required is called Titiksha. That means I should have a tremendously strong mind that can tolerate all the nonsense in the world, especially if a person has a very major objective in life. The objective now is so important. My mind can be so flexible to handle any situation. So that is one of the prime requirements for a student of Vedanta. So in a way, when you look at Vedantic approach, you have to have a strong mind. However, in Vedanta or Advaita Vedanta that we go is a teaching. It is a knowledge. And this knowledge comes through a guru who has understood what he is speaking. And when the guru teaches you, what happens? We use the same mind, but now we try to dissolve the mind. The mind, a strong mind, means a strong ego. The teacher helps us to dissolve our mind. And once there is no ego, the magic is there is no problem. So Vedanta goes beyond the ego. It uses the mind to go beyond the mind. In Vedanta also we have the description of what is called a roasted seed. A roasted seed looks just like any other seed. But one important thing that the roasted seed cannot do is it cannot germinate. Now, a burnt rope may look like a rope, but what that rope cannot do is it cannot bind. This is a great verse by Bhagwan Ramana. He says, Nashta Manasam Utkrishta Yogina. Swami Anubhavananda calls such a yogi as a super deluxe yogi. The highest yogi is one who has been able to go beyond his mind, and therefore it is not, this is Bhagwan's term, Nashta Manasa. He has been able to overcome his mind. Literally, it will say destroyed the mind. So we should not take it as destroyed the mind, but one who has overcome the mind. For such a person, what is there to be done in this life for his own well-being? Which means he has attained to Parama Purushartha, the one who has overcome his own mind. Let us look at what happens when we go to sleep. When we go to sleep, the mind becomes dormant. With the mind disappears the ego. And with the ego disappearance, one thing is that during sleep, there is absolutely no problem. This insights came to me when I was with my father and he was seriously unwell in the hospital bed. Death was approaching. There was a lot of fear, uncertainty. He was very keen to be sure that I'm around. And then I would notice the moment he would fall asleep and he would start snoring, suddenly I realized, although on the one hand, there was a very grave situation, but suddenly for this moment, there was no problem. As long as a person is asleep, there is no mind, there is no ego, there is no problem. The moment we wake up, there is a body identification. Body, mind comes the ego. With ego, there is place, there is time. This kind of waking up normally that we do is called a Vyavaharika waking up. But once we understand Brahma Vidya, Then we wake up into this Vyavahara world, but now we play games and tell us, now I am Atma Brahma. I play the role of this limited body mind. And let us remind ourselves of this teaching that whatever happens in this world shall not affect me, because now I am of a higher order of reality. Now, I will come to that very slowly, but this is the topic. Let us look at ourselves as students of Vedanta, and a student of Vedanta has to make a few commitments. These are difficult, but I want you to see. And one of the commitments that we make is, and this is given to us by Swami Dayananda, in fact, he's written a book on this problem, on this topic. I am the problem, I am the solution. Of course, he's put it in second person. He says, you are the problem, and therefore you must be the solution. A student of Vedanta will never blame anybody or any situation for the problems that he or she is going through. This also requires a lot of maturity. I have to accept that I am responsible for the good or the bad situation that I am in. I stop blaming anybody, because by blaming somebody, it is not going to help. On inquiry, I will find out who in me has the problem. It is the ego. And the more there is the ego, there is place of God. And what we're going to do is make a personal analysis of ourselves to see that I'm a mixture of Atma and Anatma. Now listen to these words. Hurt and upset, whether justified or not, is always self-damaging. We will agree with that. Now, what is the outcome? Whenever we feel hurt or upset, inquire, who in me is hurt? And if you realize it is the ego that is hurt. So each time I get hurt, each time I feel sad, each time I feel insulted, let it be a red flag that it is my ego. And because of my ego, it is very easy to blame the other person and get lost into that series of thought. But a student of Vedanta, it is a red flag to remind, oh, my ego is active. Let us look at all the situations in my life, in my work life, in my family life, in my social life. We will experience difficult persons and difficult situations. And I want you to imagine, where do we experience difficult people and difficult situations? In my work zone, in my family zone, in my social zone. And the more I'm able to identify these, I will be able to analyze and work on where these problems come and where I can get the solution. In addition, there is another zone called the intimate zone, which I know about myself. We can be our worst enemies when we are very rigid, when we are inflexible, when we are not able to forgive ourselves. And finally, the solution comes from Advaita Vedanta. If I am open to it, if I have the courage, if I have the determination to work for it. And that is through the spiritual zone. Now, I will come to the answer. Where do we get all our problems? And this is given to us by Swami Anubhavananda. Whatever I give a lot of importance to, just check. If I give a lot of importance to some particular person, some particular situation, you will see that person or that situation is the cause of all the difficulties in my life. It does not mean that that person is not important, but I am giving relatively more importance than my own well-being. My well-being is being compromised by giving importance to that person or that situation. We will work on it as we go through. Few aphorisms that will help us to work through difficult situations. One is, problems are inevitable, suffering is optional. I want you to see how this will come. This is again given to us by Swami Anubhavananda. As ego, there is no complete solution to any problem. All of us doctors and those in problem-solving situations will know we are able to offer some form of a temporary balm to people's difficulties, both physical and psychological, but we know that there is no complete solution to any problem. But then, as we come from a higher self, as Atma, you will see there is no problem. So again, Swami Anubhavananda reminds us, anchor on the absolute, anchor on your higher nature, play the game of relativity, play the game of body-mind. Let us work into certain diagnostics to say where we get a problem. The Upanishads give us a certain phrase called Avidya, Karma, Karma. Remember these words? Avidya, Karma, Karma. These things come again and again in the Upanishads, and teachers will quote those verses which talk of Avidya, Karma, Karma. What is Avidya? Avidya means ignorance of my true nature. I do not know my true nature. My true nature is Atman evatmana tushtaha, as given by Bhagavan in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita in reply to Arjuna's question as to what are the qualities of a Sthita Prajna. And Shri Krishna so brilliantly replies, that person who has understood and who's complete in himself. Now, when I do not know I am complete, but I think I am incomplete. I think I am a limited being. That is the Mula Avidya, beginningless ignorance. Then a thought comes in my mind, if I accomplish that, if I go there, if I do this, that is called karma. A desire enters in my mind. Gautama Buddha also worked on his 4 noble truths. He says the world is full of suffering. The root cause of suffering is karma or desire. Once karma comes in my mind, once it feels I should do this, then can we keep quiet? We have to do some activity to achieve what we want. So this is the vicious cycle of avidya, karma, karma. Whenever we do any karma, there is punya or papa. This punya or papa creates a certain engram in our minds. That means any pleasurable activities, I would like to repeat them because it gives me joy. Any painful activities, I will try to avoid. Technically, in Sanskrit, these are called raga or dvesha. So our whole life is, I like certain things, I don't like some things. And these become, again, a vicious cycle called vasana. And because we have got into this trap, and this trap is called the Hridaya Granthi. This is the knot that we need to break up. And slowly our teachers will say, it is not really a knot. It is a misconception. The Bhagavad Gita gives a nice verse, and this is the diagnostic verse, which is a repetition of what I've already said. Ajnanena avritam jnanam tena muhyanti jantavaha. All of us, jantavaha, Krishna uses a very strong word. We are all creatures. He says, why are we suffering? Although we are complete as we are, because of ignorance of our true nature. Avritam jnanam, my true nature has been covered. And because I am not able to realize my true nature, we have this avidya, karma, karma, and so on. Now let us come to problem solving. And these are important slides. And from now on, we have certain sadhanas to work on. Bhagavan Ramana's approaches are absolutely direct. So if we want Vedanta, Vedantic solutions in shortcut, but given to a person who has lived in a human body just like us, let us listen to some of these aphorisms, phrases, and make it a part of our meaning. One phrase that Bhagavan has given us to remember, to assimilate, to digest, and to make it a sadhana in our life is Naham, Teham, Koham, Soham. It rhymes, so it is easy to remember. Please repeat. Naham, Beham, Koham, Soham. Naham, Beham. I am not my body. So this is a great statement because all along my identification is with this body-mind. And Bhagavan, the enlightened master, through his own realization, is absolutely firm. I am not my body. Now, this is the first step in a Vedantic student's journey, that I am someone other than my body. If I am not my body, then who am I? This inquiry starts, and this inquiry is the whole process of Vedanta. Now, this inquiry becomes meaningful, becomes purposeful, becomes possible only with the help of a great master. An enlightened master can help us through Guru and Shastras to help us to discover my true nature is Saha aham asmi. I am that. I am already that which I can possibly be. And in Sanskrit, it is made into one word called Soham, which means Saha aham asmi. A great aphorism to remind ourselves every day. Naham deham koham soham. I am not this body mind. This body mind is only an instrument for my transaction. I need to inquire. I need to inquire to myself. I don't have to take digested information from somebody else. Let me go through the process of inquiry. Are we ready for that? Swamiji, Swami Paramarthananda ji gives us a fundamental law, which is again based on the Shastras, which is reiterating what Bhagwan Ramana had said. I am other than whatever I experience. I experience so many things in this room. I'm certain I'm none of that. But one thing I'm not too certain about is this body. See, everything else is not me, but there is a tendency to feel that I am this body. So the first fundamental law says that this body is an object of my experience. The mind is an object of my experience, and therefore I am not my body. I am not my mind. And the derivation is I, the observer, the one who is making the statement using this body and mind, is the only reality. Everything else around this, including my body and mind, is the lower order of reality. Now, these are refined statements. It may take me years to understand, but let us take it as a formula for me to work on. I am other than whatever I experience in. I am Satyam. Whatever I experience is Mithya. And this comes to the fundamental of Advaita Vedanta. I am Brahman, and whatever I experience, including my body and mind, is Jagan Mithya. And if I have Shraddha in the words of Sri Krishna, and if it has been interpreted properly to me by my Guru, because this is a Mahavakya statement, a Mahavakya statement equates the limited me to Paramatma. And here is Sri Krishna's statement. Kshetragnam chapi mam viddhi sarva kshetreshu bharata. That one which is the experiencer in all of us is none other the Sri Krishna principle. The experiencer in you, the experiencer in me, an experiencer in everyone is none other than Sri Krishna himself, or the conscious principle, or Bhagavan. That means the consciousness principle within me, which is enlivening me, which is enlivening all of us, that principle is common to all of us. And Sri Krishna gives Mama Matam. This is my opinion. What is my opinion? Kshetragnyor Jnanam. That distinction between the experienced and the experiencer, between the Drik, the seer, and the Drishyam, in my opinion, is the knowledge. If there is something that we need to work on all the time, this is a sadhana that I need to do. So based on the commandment, or based on the suggestion, or based on the opinion of Sri Krishna, let us do what I would call is an enlightenment experiment. This experiment, I do it all the time, and I will recommend that all of us do it. This experiment, of course, has been brought to us by Swami Paramarthananda ji. And in his classes, he will show you his hand like this and say, in addition to my hand, what else do you see? And of course, as students of Paramarthananda ji, we know I see so many objects around me. I take one thing for granted. And Swamiji will say, you know, I will give you a clue. Because of that, you're able to see my hand. Because of that, you're able to see all these objects. And the answer is, I see all the objects around me. I see Swamiji's hand because of light upon my hand. If there is no light on my hand is not self-luminous. None of the objects here are luminous on their own. I'm able to see them because they are able to reflect light. So any object that I see light on them. That is why I call it an enlightenment experiment. Now look around the place wherever you're sitting. Whatever object you are seeing, that object I'm able to see because there is light on that object, or it is a source of light which is delivering that light. So in every object, I'm able to see light. Now I will go very quickly. I'm able to see that object because of light. I'm able to see because my eyes are functioning. My eyes are able to see because my mind is functioning. My mind is functioning because I'm conscious. The Kenopanishad gives us a verse that in this enlightenment experiment, there is a Maha Mantra that we need to keep repeating every time I see this. Pratibodha viditam matam. In every experience that I see, I become aware of the experiencer within me because I'm able to see all. I'm aware of the light on the objects. I'm aware, I'm able to see them because of my eyes. I'm able to see them because of my mind. I'm able to see them because of consciousness. That is the first step of the enlightenment experiment. Now let us see how in science what happens. Now whenever I see any object on me, because of the light on that object which reflects on the object through the lens, like in a photographic camera, on the retina, I have a small inverted image. So in my eyes, in both my eyes, this whole world and all the people around have become tiny little images. That means the world has been reduced in my eyes to images. Now, in neurosciences, we know how the information is carried from the retina until the occipital cortex. Those images through a transducer become electrical signals, and the electrical signals go through a series of filters, and finally it comes to the occipital cortex of the brain, where those two images become fused into one, and now I'm able to see the world. So if I go through once again, the world has become reduced to an image. The image has become a thought, and the thought I am aware because of consciousness. If you are agreed to this, we will go through and we will know, see, an image is not as real as the person. If I'm seeing a real tree, the tree has now become an image. And that is why everything has, the whole world now has a dependent existence. What do you mean by a dependent existence? Swamiji gives a very powerful example. Swamiji says if a person's beauty is dependent on the makeup, the ornaments, and the dress, such a made-up beauty is not real beauty. That means if the beauty is dependent on something, it is not real. Now the world has come into being, into me, because of the instrument of my mind, and therefore the world is not as real as, for example, if somebody is there in this room and if you ask me, I'll have to look and find out if that person is there or not. But if you ask me, are you there? I don't need my mind or sense organs to say I am there. That knowledge that does not need any instrument which I have shown you like this is the real truth. And that knowledge, I am. Bhagavan has given us a wonderful statement. He says, Manasantu kim iti marga nekrite naiva manasam marge arjava. Now, what is this ego, or what is this thing called the mind? If you inquire, you will see there is no real thing. It is only a mithya. It is only an image. Our mind is not as real as you think. I will go through the Upadesha Sara where he uses certain words for all the thoughts. Now, for instance, I'm seeing the wall, I'm seeing chairs, I'm seeing furniture around. Now, all these have become thoughts in my mind, which Bhagavan Ramana calls them as idam vritti. Now, who is seeing all these thoughts? There are so many objects and so many people. I am seeing. Now, that I seeing is also a thought. So in my mind, I am also a thought who's seeing all these objects. And this I thought is supported by Atma or consciousness. Illustrations, see this picture. In my mind, I will see a car, a bird, a table, a chair, a man, a woman. So all these are thoughts, and Bhagavan calls them as idam vritti. Who is observing all of them? This is my ego or a sense of individuality. I am seeing all of them, which is a central thought which is supporting all these thoughts. And if you see, all these are not as real as the consciousness which is always there. That consciousness which he calls is aham, that which is there all the time, that which comes and goes, is not so real. Now, this is what we understand as Jagan Mithya. For example, this world that I experience is called Vyavaharika Satya, because everything we will call them Satya for now. Once we go into a higher level of understanding, then when we go to Paramarthika, this world becomes Mithya. But until we go or have the vision of that higher nature, this world is absolutely real. Now, in this world, if I go to sleep and if I have a dream, in my dream, there is a dream world, there are dream objects. In the dream, I have a body. I create my own body, which interacts with the dream world. That world is absolutely real while I'm going through the dream. And sometimes I wake up because of a certain nightmare. And that nightmare is also real. At that time, I realized my dream world and my dream objects were pratibhasika. They were only images and not as real as the dreamer. I have woken up into a higher order of reality. Now, is it possible now for me to wake up into the next level called Paramarthika? Now, once I woke up from Pratibhasika to Vyavahara, once I have woken up from my dream world to this world, whatever problems I had in the dream world, medical, financial, what happens to those problems? Will they continue to affect me once I have woken up? The answer is the dream problems are insignificant to a person who's woken up. So too, if through Guru Shastra Upadesha, I can wake up to a higher order of reality, then what happens? I give relatively less importance to my family members, to all the difficult people in my life, to all the problems. Now, why? When the sun of consciousness rises, the stars and the moon don't disappear. They are still there, but they become insignificant. When I realize my true nature, and I realize that I am someone other than my body and mind, and that becomes a matter of conviction, then it is possible that the problems that would normally affect me become relatively small. And that is Vedanta's way of saying Jagan Mithya, to give less importance, because my true nature is something higher. So with this background, let us make certain conclusions. And this is given to us by Swami Anubhavanandaji. The world is a stage. My body and mind is a costume that has been given to me. Life is a drama, and my prarabdha is a script that I have to go through. So what do we need to do? Play our role sincerely as per the instructions given to me. And I know as a doctor, as a teacher, as a man, and as a woman, what are my roles? Whatever roles I have to do, play them sincerely, but not seriously. Very jokingly, Swamiji calls that as Karnatak. And supposing my role involves crying, because the situation is vyavaharically serious, then in front of important people in my life, I will cry, real tears will come. But internally, I know that this is a role play, and I will not allow that jubilation, that celebration in my heart to be affected by any of the roles that I play. Some questions at this stage. Am I the body with consciousness, or am I the consciousness with the incidental body? Am I this body which is growing, graying, and going, or am I the witness of the ever-changing body and mind? So the teacher says, instead of claiming the body with consciousness, we have to train ourselves to claim that I am consciousness with an incidental body. Realized people have said this. We are not human beings with a spiritual experience, but spiritual beings who have forgotten our true nature and think we are limited human beings. Finally, who am I? I am not that, I am that Mano Buddhi Hankara Chittani Naham. So negation, Chidananda Rupaha Shivoham Shivoham. I am of the nature of auspiciousness. I am that which illumines my body, mind, and the world. And my true nature has no attributes. I have no limitations in time. I have no limitations in space. And when I have no limitations, I am Ananta. And because I have no limitations, I have transcended form. I have transcended all forms of limitations. And the true transformation is transcending form. What happens to my body and mind then? The body and mind is a great gift. We use it, but don't identify with it. Remember, naham deham. Without this body and mind, how can I claim aham brahmasmi? It is my body, mind, mithya body, mithya mind, mithya guru, mithya shastras, who have to help me to claim the satya, aham brahmasmi. Even a jivan mukta has a jiva sharira. So finally, I will conclude the first part of my discussion with this beautiful story of Sri Krishna. My whole story is the ego is the problem, and therefore working on the ego is a solution. This is my story, which I've told 100 times about Sri Krishna. Rukmini, Krishna's wife, had one major problem. And the problem was, you're spending so much time on that flute. What is there in the flute which I do not have? And Krishna's reply was, the flute is so empty. Whenever you are empty, whenever you are a nobody, then Sri Krishna will express through you. The God has said, and it shall be my endeavor to reveal thee through my actions, knowing it is thy power that gives me strength to act. Life of my life. Life of my life for me means Atma. Now, with this background, I have concluded the first part, which is a certain sadhana that we have to do as students of Vedanta, which I call this as an enlightenment experiment. I will quickly go through this once again, which is the enlightenment experiment. And our sadhana start from this phrase, Naham, Deham, Koham, Soham. Bhagavan has given us a certain aphorism. I am not my body. This is the first step. Then we have to inquire. We inquire through Guru and Shastra. The Shastras, Kshetragnam Chapi Mam Vidhi, tell us, I am not my body, but I am the consciousness that is expressing through my body. And then one experiment that we need to do is, in every experience that I see, I'm able to see because of light. I'm able to see light because of my eyes. From my eyes, I come to my mind. From my mind, I come to my consciousness. Prati bodha viditam matam. Then my question is the objects real or is the observer real? All of these have entered into my mind, are only images, are only thoughts. Bhagavan says, Manasantu kim iti marga nekrite naiva manasam marge arjava. These are instruments which are not so real like the ego. Look at this. The whole world is only a thought. And in that thought, there is a thought called I thought. And therefore, if I give less importance to all these images, give more importance to me, the observer, then it is possible that I wake up to a higher level. I give less importance to the world around me, Jagan Mithya, and then what do? Karnataka. Play my role sincerely. About that there is no compromise. If I don't play my role in the Vyavahara world, I will have problems. Therefore, I play my role sincerely, but then not seriously. This is stage one. I have disidentified my body and I've identified with my Atma. I am Atma, Brahma. This is the first stage. The less of ego, the more of Bhagavan, and let Bhagavan manifest through me in and through every action. Every thought, every word, every deed is Sri Krishna functioning through me. And this is stage one. We'll go through another important experiment. And are you ready for that? It will take some time. Be with me, be a little patient. Now, Vidyaranya Swami. Now, these are all post-Shankara great masters. They are relatively more modern compared to the Upanishads. And being great teachers, they have been able to bring it in a manner that we will be able to understand. Bhagavan says, Vichara, Koham, inquire. And the inquiry is brought out most brilliantly in the first 10 verses of the first chapter of Panchadashi by Vidyaranya Swami. Now, normally in Vedanta, we use Shruti, Yukti, and Anubhuti. Shruti means the scriptures. But in the beginning, we will not touch on Shrutis. We are not using the scriptures. Vidyaranya Swami uses only logic and uses our own experiences And as students of Vedanta, you have been with this for some time. Vidyaranya takes a whole chapter to explain it. I will do it very quickly. Be with me. As Swami Anubhavananda says, be very attentive. You will be able to understand this. Now, I'm seeing so many objects. Objects are many. The observer is only one. Now, this happens during the daytime. Throughout the day, I have experienced so many things, Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha, through all my sense organs. But the observer is only one. When I dream, the observer is again the same, but the observed objects are different. There is someone who was there even during my dream, who has observed my dream, and who tells me when I wake up, this is the kind of a dream you had. Sometimes in deep sleep, I have had absolutely no experience, but there is an observer who knows I have slept well and will tell you, I experienced nothing. For example, now, for a moment, there are no thoughts in my mind. I'm bombarding you with thoughts. But there are some moments when there are no thoughts. Who is the one who is aware of my thoughts? Who is the one who is aware of the emptiness, the blankness? And that is one constant factor, that is consciousness. Vidyaranya says same story, goes day after day, month after month, year after year, and so on. So there is this consciousness is there all the time. Then another question that is asked is, if you look at yourself from childhood until now, my body has changed, my mind has changed, my thoughts have changed, my friends have changed, my ideas have changed, my philosophies have changed. But there is one thing in me that I know, and I can say with certain, I am has never changed. What is this I? This table that I'm sitting on cannot say I, because only a conscious person can say I. Am I existent or not? Do I need anybody to prove my existence? I know I am existent. I don't need anybody to verify. If there is one truth, it is I am. The moment I say I am a man, I'm a doctor, I'm an Indian, I have gone into relativity. But one thing that never changes is I am. Now, observe these two things. That which is there all the time, from my childhood till now, is this consciousness. That which never changes in all three periods of time, that is defined in Tattva Bodha as Satyam. Satkim Kalatraya api tishtati iti Sat. That which is there in all three periods of time, which is there all the time, is Sat. So you will see that which is there, and that Sat is also Chit, which is consciousness. There is a nice verse in the Upadesha Sara by Bhagwan Ramana who says, Sattva Basika Chit Kvave Itira. How can you separate Sat from Chit? Sattaya hi Chit. Sat and Chit are one entities. Consciousness and existence are one and the same. Chittaya hi aham. That conscious existence, I am. So one thing that I need to claim is I am. So Vidyaranya Swami, through a small experiment, has told us to claim I am. I am consciousness, I am existence. And the next question he asks, see, my love for various objects and persons changes all the time. But there is one thing I love constantly and unconditionally. And what is that? I love myself. Do we love an object that gives us sorrow? Cannot be. I always love something that gives me happiness. By deduction, not my body, mind, there is something in me which is the source of happiness. Now, I'm very quickly coming to the deduction. Therefore, I as Atma, I am Sat, I am Chit, I am Ananda. I am Sat Chit Ananda. Now, this is a Mahavakya by Brahman is Sat. Brahman is the only truth of Advaita Vedanta is Sat, Brahman is Chit, Brahman is Ananda, which means this is what is called Mahavakya Vichara. Tvam Padam with Vichara. Inquiry into the individual, inquiring into the total. And then this is the Asi Padartha, the essential nature of the individual is Sat Chit Ananda. The essential nature of the divine is Sat Chit Ananda. Therefore, we can conclude, I am Atma Brahma. I am that. Now coming to certain conclusions, how much we need to thank our teachers, our acharyas. Swamiji has said these words have to be understood. What is Sat, what is Chit, what is Ananda? These are solid verses. And if these verses are understood and internalized, Vedanta is over. Now the problem is, if it is still words for me, if it is, these words are not fire, these words have not burnt that ego in me, there is still that ego which keeps surfacing, there's still that is ego that gets hurt, that ego that has a want, then it means, don't worry, the truth is you are already that. You are already that which you can possibly be. Your reality cannot be taken away by anybody. What does a guru do? A guru takes away from you what you think you have, but not your ego, your limitations. And he reveals to you what you have always been, your true self of Satchidananda. If I have not understood, if I have not internalized, which means continue karma yoga, Panchamaha Yajna, Ishvara Arpana Bhava, Ishvara Prasada. Each time I clean my home, I do tiny tasks. Let me be it as a Ishvara Arpana Bhava, Ishvara Prasada Bhava. That will bring in Viveka, Vairagya and Mumukshutvam. Let me spend more and more time in strengthening my mind through Upasana Yoga. Then I develop those very 6 qualifications, Shama, Dhamma, Uparama, Titiksha, Samadhana, Shraddha, and so on, and my mind becomes strong. Finally, the teaching has come to me because we are students of Vedanta, we are studying Vedanta all the time. It is like the knowledge is there in me. It's like adding sugar to your drink, but then it is not sweet because I have not stirred it. What I need to do now, from now until I become realized, which is going to happen in this life at some stage, this is called Nididhyasanam. And how do we define Nididhyasanam? Yoga Vashishta and Vidyaranya also has brought it in the Panchadashi. Tat Chintanam, Tat Katanam, Anyon Tat Prabodhanam, Eka Deka Parattvamcha, Brahma Abhyasa Vidur Buddha. What is Nididhyasanam? That means what is my sadhana that I have to do? Tad Chintanam. Think I am Atma Brahma all the time. Tat Katanam. If I have to speak to somebody, tell him and her, you are Atma. Tat Prabodhanam. Supposing there is somebody whom you can teach, who is willing to sit down and listen to you. What are you going to teach? Same thing. Tat Prabodhanam. Ekadeka Paratvamcha. Other than this, there is nothing else to work on. And this is what is called Brahma Abhyasa or Vidur Buddha. Finally, what happens now? The purpose of Nididhyasanam is to internalize this message, which I told earlier is a very difficult message. Brahma Satyam. Now you're going to say, I am Satyam. I am Atma Brahma. And where do we remember? Not in a Vedanta class, but even in the most provoking situations, when you are with difficult people, when you are in embarrassing moments, when you try to defend yourself, even in those moments, remember, I am Atma Brahma. Who are you? I am the support of this whole world. Mayeva Sakalam Jatam. I have given existence to the whole world. I support the whole world. By my true nature, I am Akarta, I am both Abhokta, I am Nitya, I am Shuddha, I am Asanga. And the world around me is Mithya. The world around me means my body, my mind, my family, my friends, my possessions, all those which I normally value a lot. They are of a lower order of reality. And let this be a matter of conviction. And this happens through Nididhyasana. Then what happens? The more I practice this Brahma Bhava, the more I am convinced of I am Atma Brahma. The Jiva Bhava, that I am a limited body mind, gets diluted. My Ahankara, my Mamakara, my Raga Dvesha all become diluted on its own. The emotional reactions of getting anger, upsets will come down. FIR, we know what is that. The frequency, intensity of my upsets and my recovery becomes much faster. And then the final benefit is Aham Satyam, Jagan Mithya becomes internalized. I'll conclude with this happy mantra of Swamiji. Those who have understood this can repeat this all the time. In reality, I have nothing to do. I have nowhere to go. Na kuch khona hai, na kuch pana hai. There is nothing to gain. There is nothing to lose. There is no need to prove anything to anybody. Whenever I'm struggling, even if I'm struggling to teach you something, if I'm struggling, that is the work of the ego. But let it be an expression of, let him speak through us. And it shall be my endeavor to reveal thee through my actions, knowing it is thy power that gives me strength to act. I don't have to prove anything to anybody. Be insult proof. A Vedanta student cannot be insulted by anybody. Mahatma Gandhi had said, nobody can take away your self-respect unless you give it away. I will not give permission for anybody to upset me because now I know my true nature. Just be happy. Life is a drama, Karnatak. So what do? Anchor on the absolute. Play the game of relativity. I'll conclude with this great Upanishadic mantra, which comes in many places. We have recently studied in Mundaka. Vidyate hridaya granti. Chidyante sarva samshaya. Kshiyante chasya karmani tasmin drishte paravare. That hridaya granti, that avidya kama karma, that vicious cycle is now broken and all the doubts in my mind are gone. All my karmas of the past have disappeared. There is no sanchita karma. There is no one who's going to do agami karma. The prarabdha karma does not matter because now I have awakened to a higher reality. And what is that higher reality? Tasmin drishte paravare. I have seen the transcendental. I have seen the immanent. Brahman is now both transcendental, like the light on my hand. It is there, but it is beyond my hand. And Brahman is in and through me, and Brahman is none other than me. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Words fail me to express the deep sense of gratitude to Dr. Timappa Hegde sir. His words were worth in weight of gold with an intense transformative impact because they come from his existential knowledge. His keenness in sharing knowledge, willingness in hand-holding, and always leading by example makes our spiritual journey so much more effective and joyous. Please accept our heartfelt pranam, sir. A big thank you to the ever-growing fraternity of Param Vedanta. Your active participation and positive feedback motivates us to do more. Our next Bhagavad Gita verse by verse session is on the 16th of December, wherein verses 1 to 9 of chapter 17 will be taken up. It is that time of the year that we offer our collective Guru Dakshina to our Gurus, while thanking those of you who have already been very generous in offering your Guru Dakshina. A gentle reminder to those who are desirous of making an offering and quick to add that it's entirely a voluntary contribution. The bank details are on the screen and also made available in the WhatsApp groups, Telegram, as also our website. We close today's session with our customary prayer. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om.